Lily Chen stared at her reflection in the cracked bathroom mirror of her tiny apartment, adjusting the blazer she had borrowed from her roommate Ruby for the third time. The fabric pulled slightly across her shoulders, but it was the best she could manage. Today was the day that could change her life forever. Sterling Industries, one of the most prestigious companies in the city, was hiring an executive assistant. 25 candidates had been selected from thousands of applications. And somehow, miraculously, she was one of them. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ruby. "You've got this, Lil. Show them what real talent looks like. Remember, confidence is your best accessory." Lily smiled, feeling a surge of gratitude for her best friend, who worked double shifts at the diner just to help cover their shared rent. This job meant everything, not just for her, but for both of them. The salary could finally lift them out of the cycle of choosing between groceries and electricity. Bills, she grabbed her portfolio, checked her watch, and headed for the door. The interview was at Sterling Industries downtown, and she had calculated exactly 45 minutes for the bus journey, plus a 15-minute buffer for unexpected delays. What she had not calculated was her ancient alarm clock deciding to malfunction and wake her up 20 minutes late. The race against time, the first sign of trouble came when Lily reached the bus stop, only to watch her usual bus pulling away in a cloud of exhaust fumes. Her heart sank as she checked the schedule. The next bus would not arrive for another 30 minutes, which would make her unforgivably late. No, she muttered, frantically pulling out her phone to check rideshare apps. The prices made her stomach drop. Surge pricing had kicked in, and the cheapest ride would cost her the money she had budgeted for groceries for the rest of the week. She stood there for a moment, weighing her options. This job could solve all her financial problems, but taking the rideshare would create new ones. Then she remembered Ruby's words about confidence being her best accessory, and made a decision that would later seem like the turning point of her entire life. She was going to run. Lily had been on the track team in high school, and while that was 8 years ago, muscle memory was a real thing. She kicked off her worn heels, stuffed them into her bag, and started jogging in her pantyhose. The concrete was rough against her feet, but determination made her ignore the discomfort. 8 blocks. She could do 8 blocks. By the 4th block, she was seriously reconsidering her life choices. By the 6th block, she was running purely on adrenaline and the mental image of her landlord's increasingly impatient face. By the 8th block, she could see the gleaming towers of downtown, Sterling Industries' impressive glass facade, rising like a monument to everything she hoped to achieve. The collision of destinies. Lily was so focused on the building ahead, mentally preparing her apologies for any wrinkled clothing or windswept hair, that she completely failed to notice the man walking directly toward her, his attention completely absorbed by the phone. In his hands, the collision was spectacular in its awkwardness. They crashed into each other with enough force to send her tumbling to the sidewalk, her portfolio exploding in a shower of carefully organized documents. Her bag flew open, spilling its contents across the concrete, including her uncomfortable but professional-looking heels. "Are you completely insane?" she gasped, scrambling to collect her scattered resume copies while still sitting on the ground. "Do you not have eyes, or do you just choose not to use them when walking down public sidewalks?" The man towering over her was dressed in what was clearly an expensive suit, perfectly tailored and probably costing more than she made in 6 months at her part-time job at the bookstore. His dark hair was styled with the kind of precision that spoke of exclusive salons, and his face carried the expression of someone who had never been spoken to with anything less than complete deference. "I was not the one running down the street like I was being chased by wild animals," he replied, his voice cold and clipped. He made no move to help her up, instead standing there with his arms crossed, radiating impatience. Lily finally managed to get to her feet, clutching her papers and trying to maintain what little dignity remained. It was then that she noticed the worst part of the situation. One of her heels had broken completely in the fall. The strap snapped, and the heel itself hanging at an angle that made it completely unwearable. "Perfect," she said, staring at the broken shoe. "Just absolutely perfect. Perhaps you should invest in more practical footwear if you insist on sprinting through downtown," the man said, already pulling out his phone again. Or better yet, leave earlier so you do not have to run at all. Lily looked up at him, incredulous. Are you seriously giving me life advice right now? You just knocked me over and broke my shoe, and your response is fashion tips? I did not knock you over. You ran into me? Because you were not watching where you were going? Neither were you. They stared at each other for a moment, and Lily felt a familiar surge of the stubbornness that had gotten her through for years of college while working 2 jobs. She was not going to let this arrogant stranger in his perfect suit make her feel small. You know what? She said, slipping off the other heel and holding both shoes in her hands. Thank you. He raised an eyebrow. For what? For helping me realize that I do not need to pretend to be someone I am not to succeed? If they do not want to hire someone who shows up barefoot because she cares more about being on time than looking, perfect, then I do not want to work there anyway. And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving him standing on the sidewalk with what might have been surprise flickering across his otherwise impassive features. The Sterling Industries gauntlet. Lobby of Sterling Industries was everything Lily had imagined and more. Soaring ceilings, marble floors, and the kind of modern art that probably costs more than most people's houses. She approached the reception desk, her broken heels clutched in one hand and her slightly rumpled portfolio in the other. The receptionist, a woman who looked like she had stepped out of a fashion magazine, stared at Lily's bare feet with undisguised shock. I am here for the executive assistant interview, Lily said, trying to project confidence despite feeling like a disaster victim. Lily Chen. Receptionist's gaze traveled slowly from Lily's feet up to her face, her expression suggesting she was witnessing some sort of social experiment gone wrong. Of course, she said finally, her voice carefully neutral. 23rd floor. The elevator is just around the corner. As Lily walked through the pristine lobby, she became aware of the stairs. Employees in perfect business attire paused their conversations to watch her pass. A few people actually took out their phones, and she had the uncomfortable suspicion that she was about to become someone's social media story about corporate interview disasters. The elevator ride to the 23rd floor felt like the longest journey of her life. She used the mirrored walls to try to tidy her appearance, smoothing her hair and adjusting her blazer. The important thing was that she was here. She was on time, despite everything, and that had to count for something. The waiting room of dreams. And nightmares opening the door to the waiting area was like entering a different world. 24 other candidates sat in perfectly arranged chairs, and every single one of them looked like they had been professionally styled for the occasion. Designer suits, flawless makeup, shoes that probably cost more than Lily's monthly rent. They looked like they belonged in this world of marble and mahogany. And then there was Lily, barefoot and slightly disheveled. Carrying her broken shoes like some sort of bizarre accessory, the silence that fell when she entered was profound. 24 pairs of eyes fixed on her feet, then traveled upward to take in the full scope of what they clearly considered to be a catastrophic lack of professional judgment. Lily found an empty chair at the back of the room and sat down, trying to make herself as invisible as possible. She placed her shoes on the floor beside her and opened her portfolio, pretending to review her resume for the 100th time. She actually barefoot? She heard someone whisper. Maybe it is some kind of power move, another voice suggested doubtfully. Or maybe she is just completely unprofessional, came a third opinion. Delivered with a kind of disdain that made Lily's cheeks burn, she kept her eyes fixed on her papers, but she could feel the weight of their judgment. These women belonged. Here they had the right clothes, the right accessories, the right everything. What had she been thinking, applying for a position so far out of her league? But then she remembered why she was here. Ruby working 16-hour days to help them scrape together rent money. The stack of unpaid bills on their kitchen table. The way her stomach had growled during her last job interview because she had not eaten lunch to save money. She might not look the part, but she needed this job, and she was going to give it everything she had. The reveal. That changed everything. The sound of confident footsteps in the hallway made everyone in the waiting room straighten up. This was it. Someone from Sterling Industries was coming to begin the interview process. Lily took a deep breath, preparing to face whatever came next. The door opened, and her world tilted completely off its axis. The man who entered the waiting room was unmistakably the same arrogant stranger who had collided with her on the sidewalk. Same perfect suit, same cold expression, same air of absolute authority. But now she could see the nameplate being held by his assistant, Nathan Sterling, Chief Executive Officer. Lily felt her blood turn to ice water. She had not just argued with some random businessman on the street. She had told off the CEO of the company she was trying to work for. The man who would ultimately decide whether she got this job or not. Nathan's gaze swept across the room, taking in the assembled candidates with the practiced eye of someone accustomed to making quick judgments. When his eyes reached Lily, sitting in the back row with her broken shoes beside her chair, he paused. For a moment, their eyes met across the room.
Aight.
His expression was unreadable, but she caught something that might have been recognition flickering in his dark eyes. "Good morning," he said, his voice carrying easily through the suddenly silent room. "Welcome to Sterling Industries. I am Nathan Sterling, and I will be conducting these interviews personally." A murmur of surprise rippled through the candidates. Having the CEO personally interview for an assistant position was unusual, but it certainly emphasized the importance of the role. "We will be calling you in alphabetically," Nathan continued, still not looking directly at Lily. "Please be prepared to discuss not only your qualifications, but also your ability to handle unexpected situations and maintain professionalism under pressure." Lily wanted to sink through the floor. Of all the possible scenarios she had prepared for, accidentally insulting the CEO before her interview had not made the list. Nathan handed a list to his assistant and prepared to leave the room. But just before he reached the door, he turned back. "Oh, and candidates," he added, his gaze moving deliberately to Lily's corner of the room. "I am particularly interested in people who can think on their feet." As he left the room, Lily sat, frozen in her chair, wondering if that comment had been directed at her specifically, and if so, whether it was a good sign or a very bad one. The waiting began, and with each name that was called, Lily's nervousness grew. She had approximately 24 interviews to figure out how to explain her earlier behavior, or to come up with a way to disappear completely. Neither option seemed particularly promising, but as she sat there, surrounded by perfectly polished candidates who belonged in this world in ways she never would, Lily made a decision. She was not going to apologize for being herself. She was not going to pretend the sidewalk encounter had not happened. When her name was called, she was going to walk into that office barefoot and honest, and let Nathan Sterling decide whether someone like her had a place in his perfectly ordered world. After all, she had already lost her shoes. She might as well keep her dignity. "Lily Chen," came the crisp voice of Nathan's assistant from the doorway. Lily's heart hammered against her ribs as she stood up, her bare feet silent against the plush carpet. The other candidates watched her walk toward the door, with expressions ranging from pity to barely concealed amusement. She held her head high, clutching her portfolio and her broken shoes. The assistant, a professional woman in her 40s named Margaret, led Lily down a hallway lined with photographs of Sterling Industries' corporate achievements, awards groundbreaking ceremonies, charity galas where Nathan Sterling posed with celebrities and politicians. Each image reinforced just how far out of her league Lily truly was. "Mr. Sterling will see you now," Margaret said, opening the door to a corner office that was larger than Lily's entire apartment. Nathan sat behind an imposing mahogany desk, his hands folded as he reviewed what she assumed was her resume. Floor 2 ceiling. Windows offered a breathtaking view of the city's skyline, and Lily found herself momentarily distracted by the sight of the street where their earlier encounter had taken place. "Please sit," Nathan said without looking up. Lily approached the leathered chair across from his desk, acutely aware of how her bare feet looked against the expensive Persian rug. She sat down carefully, placing her broken shoes on the floor beside her chair and her portfolio on her lap. For several long moments, Nathan continued reading in silence. When he finally looked up, his expression was completely neutral, giving no hint of their previous meeting. "Miss Chen," he began, "your resume indicates that your most recent position was at Riverside Books, small independent bookstore. Before that, you worked as a server at Murphy's Family Restaurant. Your degree is in English literature from State University, graduated 3 years ago with honors, but no internships or corporate experience. Lily nodded, her throat suddenly dry. When laid out like that, her qualifications sounded even more inadequate than she had feared. Tell me, Nathan continued, leaning back in his chair. What makes you think you are qualified to be the executive assistant to the CEO of a multinational corporation?
Oh, yeah.
The question hung in the air between them. Lily could feel this moment balancing. On a knife's edge, she could give him the rehearsed answer she had practiced in the mirror, talking about her organizational skills and attention to detail, or she could be honest. She chose honesty. I do not think I am qualified, she said, meeting his gaze directly, not in the traditional sense. I do not have corporate experience or an MBA or connections in the business world. What I do have is something that might be more valuable. Nathan raised an eyebrow, clearly not expecting this response. I have hunger, Lily continued, her confidence growing with each word. I have spent 3 years working multiple jobs while sending out hundreds of applications to companies that never even acknowledged receiving them. I have learned to stretch $5 into a week's worth of meals and still show up to work with a smile. I know what it means to fight for every opportunity. She paused, glancing at her bare feet, then back at Nathan. This morning I missed my bus and did not have money for a rideshare, so I ran 8 blocks in heels to make sure I would not be late for this interview. When those heels broke, I made a choice to show up anyway, barefoot, rather than give up on what might be my only chance. Nathan's expression had shifted slightly, though she could not read what he was thinking. You see me sitting here without shoes, and you probably think I am unprofessional or desperate, Lily went on, but I think it shows that I do not give up. When things get difficult, I adapt. I find solutions. And I care enough about this opportunity to risk looking foolish rather than miss it entirely. In the incident on the sidewalk this morning, Nathan said quietly. Do you care to address that? Lily felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she held his gaze. I should apologize for my reaction. I was stressed and running late, and I took my frustration out on a stranger. That was wrong of me. But I will not apologize for standing up for myself when someone was dismissive and rude. Nathan leaned forward slightly. Even knowing that the stranger was your potential employer, especially then? Lily replied without hesitation. If you want an assistant who will let you walk all over her, who will smile and agree with everything, you say regardless of whether it is right or wrong, then you do not want me. But if you want someone who will tell you the truth, even when it is uncomfortable, someone who will work harder than anyone else, because this job means everything to her, then maybe my lack of corporate polish is exactly what you need. The silence that followed felt eternal. Nathan studied her face as if trying to solve a complex equation. Finally, he stood up and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. Miss Chen, in the past hour, I have interviewed several candidates. Harvard MBA graduates, women, with decades of executive assistant experience, people who speak 4 languages and have worked for Fortune 500 CEOs. Lily's heart sank. This was it, the polite rejection. Every single one of them gave me the exact same rehearsed answers, Nathan continued, still facing the window. They told me what they thought I wanted to hear. Professional, polished, and completely forgettable. He turned back to face her. You are the first person today who has been genuinely honest with me. The first person who showed me who they really are rather than who they think they should be. Lily held her breath. Position is yours if you want it, Nathan said simply. The first day of everything, Lily stared at Nathan, certain she had misheard. I am sorry, what? The job is yours, he repeated, returning to his seat. Salary is $75,000 annually. Full benefits, 3 weeks paid vacation. You start Monday morning at 8 o'clock, but I've... Lily struggled to form coherent words. You are offering me the job? Really? Is there a problem with that? No, no problem at all. I just... She shook her head, unable to process the sudden reversal. Of fortune, yes. Yes, I want the job. I accept. Nathan nodded briskly. Margaret will handle the paperwork and give you the employee handbook. She will also provide you with advance on your first paycheck so you can purchase appropriate work attire. The kindness of that gesture, delivered in such a matter-of-fact way, nearly brought tears to Lily's eyes. "Thank you," she managed. "Will not regret this decision." "I certainly hope not," Nathan replied, though there was something warmer in his tone now. "One more thing, Miss Chen. Tomorrow you should wear shoes." Despite everything, Lily found herself laughing. "I will definitely invest in better shoes." Weekend passed in a blur of shopping and preparation. Ruby had screamed so loudly when Lily told her about getting the job that their neighbor had knocked on the wall to complain. They had celebrated with takeout, Chinese food, and cheap champagne, staying up late planning how the job would change their lives. "I cannot believe you showed up barefoot and still got hired," Ruby said for the 10th time, shaking her head in amazement. "Only you, Lily. Only you could turn a complete disaster into the opportunity of a lifetime." Monday morning arrived with unseasonable sunshine, which Lily chose to interpret as a good omen. She had used part of her advance to buy 2 professional outfits, comfortable but stylish shoes, and to get her hair cut and styled at an actual salon, rather than trimming it herself in the bathroom. Mirror, standing in the lobby of Sterling Industries at 7:45 a.m. Wearing her new navy blue suit and carrying a leather portfolio that still smelled like the department store, Lily felt like she was stepping into someone else's life. Learning the Sterling way, Margaret turned out to be a godsend. Patient and thorough. In explaining the complexities of Nathan's schedule and the various responsibilities that came with being his executive assistant, "Mr. Sterling is demanding but fair," Margaret explained as she showed Lily to her new desk, positioned just outside Nathan's office. "He expects excellence, but he is not unreasonable about mistakes as long as you learn from them and do not repeat them." The desk was beautiful, the computer that was newer than anything Lily had ever used, and a phone system that looked like it could launch space missions. Margaret spent the first hour walking her through the software systems, the filing organization, and the delicate art of managing Nathan's calendar. "No sugar, Margaret continued. "He prefers his morning briefings too. Be concise and factual. He does not like small talk, but he appreciates efficiency and initiative. And never, under any circumstances, put reporters through directly to his office." At exactly 8:30, Nathan emerged from the elevator, looking impeccably. Put together in a charcoal gray suit, he nodded to Lily as he passed her desk. "Good morning, Miss Chen. I trust Margaret has been helpful." "It's very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Sterling. I have a conference call with Tokyo in 15 minutes. Please hold all other calls until it is finished." Of course, he paused at his office door. "And Miss Chen? Nice shoes." For the first time since she had known him, Nathan Sterling almost smiled. The learning curve Lily's first week was a combination of small victories and minor disasters. She successfully managed Nathan's calendar, rescheduling 3 meetings to accommodate an unexpected client emergency. She also accidentally put the mayor on hold for 10 minutes while trying to figure out the phone system, creating a small diplomatic incident that Nathan had to smooth over personally. "I am so sorry," Lily said for the 5th time after Nathan hung up from his apologetic call to the mayor's office. "I pressed the wrong button, and then I could not figure out how to get him back, and ... "Miss Chen," Nathan interrupted, though not unkindly. "Everyone makes mistakes when they are learning. The key is not to make the same mistake twice." "It will not happen again," Lily promised. "I believe you," he said, and something in his tone made her think he actually meant it. What surprised her most about working for Nathan was discovering the man behind the corporate facade. He arrived earlier than anyone else and often stayed long after the building had emptied. He knew the names of the cleaning staff and the security guards. When one of the junior employees in accounting had a family emergency, Nathan personally approved in advance on her salary without being asked. He was demanding, certainly. He expected reports to be accurate and thorough. He had no patience for incompetence or laziness. But he was also fair, and Lily began to see that his reputation for being cold came more from his high standards than from any lack of compassion. The Victoria problem. Lily's first real challenge came in the form of Victoria Hamilton, Sterling Industries Director of Strategic Development. Victoria was everything Lily was not: polished, connected, and possessed of the kind of confidence that came from never having to worry about paying rent. "So you are Nathan's new assistant," Victoria said on Lily's second Friday, appearing at her desk with a smile that did not reach her eyes. How fascinating. Victoria was beautiful in the way that money and breeding could create. Perfectly styled blonde hair, designer suit that probably cost more than Lily's monthly salary, and the kind of manicure that required weekly maintenance. "I am Lily Chen, pleased to meet you." "Oh, I have heard all about you," Victoria replied, her tone suggesting that what she had heard was not particularly flattering. The girl who showed up barefoot to her interview, a very unique. Lily kept her expression neutral. "I'm sure. There are many stories circulating. You know how office gossip can be, indeed." Victoria's smile sharpened. "I am curious, though. What exactly are your qualifications for such a prestigious position? I mean, working directly with Nathan requires a certain sophistication." The word sophistication was delivered with just enough emphasis to make clear that Victoria did not believe Lily possessed any such quality. "Suppose Nathan saw something in me that matched what he was looking for," Lily replied diplomatically.
"Ow."
"Remarkable," Victoria said. "Well, I am sure you will do your best, though I should mention that this position has quite a high turnover rate. The demands can be rather overwhelming for someone without the proper background." Before Lily could respond, Nathan's office door opened. "Victoria," he said, his tone coolly professional. "I was not aware we had an appointment scheduled." "We do not," Victoria replied, her demeanor immediately becoming warmer and more animated. "I was just welcoming your new assistant to the team." Nathan's gaze moved between the two women, and Lily had the distinct impression that he was reading far more into the interaction than what had been said aloud. "How thoughtful," he said finally. "Miss Chen, could you please bring me the Morrison file?" "Victoria, I assume you have reports that need your attention?" It was a clear dismissal, delivered with such subtle authority that Victoria had no choice but to accept it gracefully. "Of course," she said. "Lovely meeting you, Lily. I am sure we will be seeing much more of each other." After Victoria left, Nathan returned to his office without comment, but Lily caught him watching through his glass door as Victoria walked away. She had the uncomfortable feeling that she had just been marked as competition in a game she did not even know she was playing, the breakthrough moment, the moment that changed everything between. Lily and Nathan came during her third week on the job. Nathan had been in back-to-back meetings all day, dealing with a crisis involving their overseas manufacturing partner. A crucial shipment had been delayed, threatening to derail a product launch that had been months in the planning. By 7 in the evening, most of the office had emptied, but Nathan was still on the phone in his office, his voice tight with frustration as he tried to coordinate solutions across multiple time zones. Lily could see through the glass that he had loosened his tie and rolled up his sleeves, his usually perfect composure showing cracks of exhaustion. She made a decision. Gathering her courage, she knocked on his door and entered when he gestured her in. "The restaurant on the 5th floor is about to close," she said quietly, placing a cup of fresh coffee and a sandwich on his desk. "I thought you might need this." Nathan looked up from his call, surprise flickering across his features. He mouthed "thank you" and returned to his conversation. But Lily noticed that he immediately reached for the coffee. An hour later, Nathan finally ended his last call and emerged from his office to find Lily still at her desk, working on organizing files that could easily have waited until morning. "You did not have to stay," he said. "I know," Lily replied, "but it seemed like you might need the support." "Did you manage to work things out with the manufacturing issue?" Nathan sat down in the chair across from her desk, something he had never done before. The first time since she had known him, he looked truly tired. "We found a temporary solution," he said. "It will cost us, but we can still make the launch date." "That is good news, Miss Chen," Nathan said, studying her face. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "In your previous jobs, did you often stay late to support your employers?" Lily considered the question. "At the bookstore, I stayed late when we had inventory or when Mrs. Patterson needed help with the online orders." At the restaurant, I picked up extra shifts when we were short-staffed. I suppose I have always believed that when you care about something, you do what needs to be done. And you care about this job? Yes, very much, she said without hesitation. This opportunity has changed my life, Mr. Sterling. I do not take that lightly. Nathan was quiet for a long moment, looking at her with an expression she could not quite read. Nathan, he said finally, I am sorry. When it is just us, you can call me Nathan. The formality is not necessary. It was a small gesture, but somehow it felt monumental, like a door opening between them. Thank you, Nathan, she said, testing, his name on her tongue. I appreciate that. He stood up, straightening his tie. You should go home, Lily. Ruby is probably wondering where you are. The fact that he remembered her roommate's name caught her off guard. How did you know about Ruby? Nathan paused at his office door. You mentioned her during your interview. You said you were doing this for both of you. He disappeared into his office to gather his things, leaving Lily sitting at her desk with the realization that Nathan Sterling paid attention to far more than she had given him credit for. And for the first time since she had started working there, she wondered if there might be more to their relationship than just professional courtesy as she gathered her own belongings and prepared to head home. Lily found herself looking forward to tomorrow in a way that had nothing to do with the paycheck and everything to do with the man in the corner office, who had just asked her to call him by his first name. 3 months into her position at Sterling Industries, Lily had found her rhythm. She could navigate the phone system without accidentally disconnecting important clients. She had memorized Nathan's preferences for everything from coffee temperature to meeting formats. Most importantly, she had earned the respect of her colleagues through consistent competence and genuine kindness. But Victoria Hamilton was not among those who had warmed to her presence. Lily discovered just how deep Victoria's resentment ran on a Tuesday morning when she arrived at the office to find her computer displaying an error message. Every file she had worked on the previous day was corrupted, including a critical presentation Nathan needed for a board meeting that afternoon. This is impossible, Lily muttered, frantically trying different recovery methods. She had been meticulous about backing up her work, but somehow even her backup files were damaged. James Parker, HR director who had become something of a mentor to Lily, stopped by her desk on his way to a meeting. Everything all right, Lily? You look stressed? Someone sabotaged my computer, she said, then immediately shook her head. Sorry, that sounds paranoid. I'm sure it was just a technical glitch. James leaned closer, lowering his voice. What kind of files were affected? The Morrison presentation, Nathan's travel itinerary for next week, and the quarterly budget summaries. Everything I worked on yesterday. James frowned. That seems awfully specific for a random computer failure. Have you told Nathan? I was hoping to fix it before he arrived. The board meeting is at 2 o'clock, and if I cannot recover that presentation, Lily, James said gently, you need to tell him. This kind of systematic file corruption does not happen by accident. When Nathan arrived at 8:30, Lily was waiting outside his office with a cup of his preferred black coffee and a face full of dread. Good morning, Nathan said, accepting the coffee. You look like someone stole your favorite book. What happened? Lily explained the situation, watching Nathan's expression grow increasingly serious as she detailed the extent of the damage. Show me, he said simply. For the next hour, Nathan sat beside Lily at her desk while she walked him through the corrupted files. He asked detailed questions about her security protocols, who had access to her computer, and whether she had noticed anything unusual in recent days. I keep thinking about Friday afternoon, Lily said finally. I went to the supply closet to get more printer paper, and when I came back, Victoria was standing by my desk. She said she was looking for you, but your office door was open and the lights were on. It would have been obvious you were not there. Nathan's jaw tightened. How long were you gone? Maybe 5 minutes? But Nathan, I do not want to accuse anyone without proof. Maybe she really was just looking for you. Nathan studied her face. Lily, in the 3 months you have worked here, have I ever given you reason to believe I would react unfairly to a situation? No, never. Then trust me to handle this appropriately. He stood up, straightening his tie. Can you recreate the Morrison presentation from memory? Lily nodded. It will take most of the morning, but yes, do it. I will handle Victoria. Nathan's conversation with Victoria took place behind closed doors, but the entire floor could feel the tension radiating from his office. Victoria's voice, usually smooth and controlled, rose to near shouting levels at one point before dropping back to an angry whisper. When she emerged 40 minutes later, her face was flushed, and her usually perfect composure was cracked around the edges. She walked past Lily's desk without making eye contact, but Lily caught her muttered words. This is not over. Nathan appeared at his office door. Miss Chen, could you join me, please? Inside his office, Nathan closed the door and leaned against it, looking more tired than she had ever seen him. I have to ask, he said. Are you certain you want to stay in this position? Victoria will not make things easy for you going forward. Lily met his gaze steadily. Are you asking me to leave? Absolutely not. I'm asking if you want to leave. There is a difference. Then no. I am not going anywhere. She paused. Nathan, can I ask you something personal? He nodded. How long have you known Victoria? Nathan moved to his desk chair, but did not sit down. Instead, he gripped the back of it, his knuckles white. Victoria and I dated briefly, about 2 years ago. The admission hung in the air between them. Lily felt something twist in her stomach that she did not want to examine too closely. It lasted about 6 months, Nathan continued. She made it clear that she saw our relationship as a business arrangement as much as a personal one. Marriage to me would advance her career, provide her with social status, financial security. When I ended things, she made it equally clear that she considered it a temporary setback rather than a final decision. And now she sees me as competition. Yes. Nathan finally sat down, running a hand through his hair. Lily, I need you to understand something. Victoria is not just vindictive. She is dangerous. Has connections throughout the company and the industry. She can make your professional life very difficult. Are you warning me or trying to scare me away? Nathan looked at her sharply. I am trying to protect you. From what exactly? From getting hurt because of me. The words came out more forcefully than he had intended, and Lily felt her breath catch. There was something in his tone, in the way he was looking at her, that had nothing to do with professional courtesy. Nathan, she said softly, are you concerned about me getting hurt professionally or personally? For a long moment, he did not answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than she had ever heard it. Both. The realization that evening Lily found herself staying late again, not because of work demands, but because she was not ready to leave Nathan's presence. He had also remained in the office, claiming to catch up on emails, but she noticed he spent more time looking through his glass door at her desk than at his computer screen. At 8 o'clock, she knocked on his door. You should go home, she said. Ruby's making her famous pasta tonight, and she always makes too much. You could join us if you want. The invitation surprised them both. It was the first time Lily had suggested anything outside of work, and the first time Nathan had been invited to something so normal and domestic. I would not want to impose, Nathan said, but there was something hopeful in his expression. It would not be an imposition. Ruby has been curious about my mysterious boss who hired the barefoot girl. Nathan almost smiled. She calls me mysterious, among other things. Most of them more flattering. This time Nathan did smile, and the transformation of his features made Lily's heart skip in a way that had nothing to do with professional admiration. I would like that, he said. Very much. The evening at Lily and Ruby's small apartment was a revelation for Nathan. He had never experienced the kind of easy warmth that filled their tiny kitchen as Ruby told embarrassing stories about Lily's college years while they cooked together. He had never sat at a table where people argued about everything from politics to movie preferences without anyone taking offense or keeping score. You know, Ruby said as they cleared the dishes, when Lily first described you, I pictured someone much more intimidating. How did she describe me? Nathan asked, glancing at Lily with amusement. Ruby, Lily warned. She said you were tall, handsome in a cold sort of way, and probably had never experienced a moment of genuine emotion in your entire life. Ruby, Lily exclaimed, her face burning with embarrassment. Nathan laughed, a sound so genuine and unguarded that both women stared at him. Well, he said, she was not entirely wrong. Until recently. The comment was directed at Lily, and the look that passed between them made Ruby suddenly very interested in washing dishes. Later, as Nathan prepared to leave, he lingered at their door. "Thank you," he said to Lily. "I had forgotten what it felt like to be in a home rather than just a house." "You are welcome any time," Lily replied, meaning it completely. "Lily," Nathan said, his voice dropping to almost a whisper. "What Victoria said earlier, about this not being over, I meant what I said about her being dangerous, I know. But Nathan, I am not going to let her chase me away from something that matters to me. The job matters to you." It was not really a question, but Lily answered anyway. "The job matters, but that is not what I meant." Nathan studied her face in the dim hallway lighting. "What did you mean?" Instead of answering with words, Lily stepped closer to him, rising up on her toes to press a soft kiss to his cheek. "Good night, Nathan," she whispered. She slipped inside her apartment before he could respond, leaving him standing in the hallway, with his hand pressed to his cheek and a look of wonder on his face. The board meeting that changed everything, the crisis came 2 weeks later. During the most important board meeting of the year, Sterling Industries was presenting their expansion plans for the coming year, a proposal that would determine the company's direction and Nathan's continued leadership. Lily had spent days perfecting every detail of the presentation. The slides were flawless, the financial projections were thorough, and the market research was comprehensive. She had triple-checked every number, every graph, every transition. But when Nathan began the presentation, disaster struck immediately. The financial projections displayed on screen were completely wrong. Instead of showing steady growth, they indicated massive losses. The market research had been replaced with outdated data from 3 years prior. Even the company logo on the title slide was incorrect. Displaying an old version that had been retired years earlier, the board members began murmuring among themselves, their expressions ranging from confusion to concern to outright alarm. "Nathan," said the board chairman, "perhaps we should postpone this presentation until these technical issues can be resolved." Nathan's face remained composed, but Lily could see the tension in his shoulders. This presentation was crucial too. His standing with the board and its failure would reflect poorly on his leadership. From her seat at the back of the boardroom, Lily felt her heart racing. She knew that presentation had been perfect when she had loaded it onto the system that morning. Someone had deliberately sabotaged it, just as they had sabotaged her computer files weeks earlier. Without thinking, she stood up. "Excuse me," she said, her voice cutting through the murmured conversations. "Mr. Sterling, might I suggest we take a brief recess while I address the technical difficulties?" Nathan looked at her, surprise flickering in his eyes. It was highly unusual for an assistant to speak during a board meeting, but he trusted her instincts. "Of course, we will reconvene in 15 minutes. As the board members filed out of the room, Lily hurried to the presentation computer. Her fingers flew over the keyboard as she accessed the backup files she had secretly created on a separate server, a precaution she had taken after the previous sabotage incident. "What are you doing?" Nathan asked, approaching her workstation. "Someone replaced your presentation files with corrupted versions," Lily said without looking up from the screen. "But I made backup copies on a secure server that only I have access to." "You anticipated this would happen? After what happened to my computer, I was not taking any chances with something this important." Within 10 minutes, Lily had restored the correct presentation files. When the board reconvened, Nathan delivered the presentation flawlessly, and the expansion proposal was approved unanimously. After the meeting, as the board members were leaving, the chairman approached Nathan. "Impressive recovery," he said. "That kind of quick thinking under pressure is exactly what this company needs." "The credit belongs to my assistant," Nathan replied, glancing at Lily. Her foresight prevented what could have been a disaster. When they were alone in the boardroom, Nathan turned to Lily with an expression of complete admiration. "How did you know to make those backup files?" "'Cause I know Victoria better than she thinks I do," Lily replied. "She was never going to give up, and she was never going to fight fair." Nathan moved closer to her, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. "You saved my career today," he said quietly. You gave me mine first, she replied. I was just returning the favor, Nathan said, his voice dropping to a whisper. This is not about careers anymore, at least not for me. Before she could respond, he cupped her face in his hands and kissed her. It was soft and tentative at first, then deeper as she melted into his embrace. When they finally broke apart, both of them were breathing hard. I should have done that weeks ago, Nathan murmured against her forehead. What took you so long? Lily asked, smiling up at him. I was trying to be professional. How is that working? Out for you? Nathan laughed, the sound echoing through the empty boardroom. Terribly. Absolutely terribly. The wedding of equals 1 year later, Lily stood at the back of a small chapel, wearing a simple white dress and holding a bouquet of wildflowers. Ruby stood beside her as maid of honor, tears already streaming down her face. You know, Ruby whispered, when you came home that day, talking about the arrogant CEO who broke your shoe, I never imagined it would lead to this. Lily smiled, looking down at her feet. She was wearing delicate white sandals that could easily be slipped off. Some things are just meant to be, she replied. The music began, and Lily walked down the aisle toward Nathan, who stood waiting for her with James Parker as his best man. The guest list was small but meaningful. Ruby, James, Margaret from the office, a few close friends, and Nathan's aunt, who had flown in from Portland. Victoria Hamilton was notably absent, having left Sterling Industries 3 months earlier to take a position with a competitor. Her departure had been sudden, and her new job, mysteriously short-lived, when her new employer discovered her history of corporate sabotage. As Lily approached the altar, Nathan's face lit up with a smile so genuine and full of joy that several guests wiped away tears. When the minister asked if anyone had objections to the union, Lily kicked off her sandals, standing barefoot on the chapel floor just as she had during her first day at Sterling Industries. The gesture drew laughter from the guests and a look of pure love from Nathan. No objections here, Nathan said loudly enough for everyone to hear. I fell in love with a woman who was brave enough to show up barefoot when it mattered most. In his vows, Nathan spoke about finding someone who saw past his wealth and status to the person he really was underneath. He talked about learning that love was not about perfection, but about finding someone who made you want to be better than you thought possible. In her vows, Lily spoke about the difference between being chosen and being valued. She talked about finding someone who did not want to change her but who helped her become the best version of herself. You hired a girl who showed up barefoot to an interview, she said, looking directly into Nathan's eyes. But you fell in love with a woman who was not afraid to be herself, even when that self was messy and imperfect and occasionally inappropriate. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Nathan lifted Lily off her feet and spun her around, both of them laughing with pure joy at the reception. Held in the garden behind the chapel, Nathan's wedding speech brought the small crowd to their feet. A year ago, I thought I knew what I wanted in a partner, he said, raising his glass. Someone polished, connected, appropriate. Someone who would fit seamlessly into my world without changing anything about it. He looked at Lily, who was sitting beside him with grass stains on her wedding dress from playing with the flower girl during the photo session. Instead, I found someone who changed everything about my world and made it infinitely better. Someone who taught me that authenticity is worth more than perfection, that laughter is more valuable than status, and that love is not about finding someone who completes you, but someone who challenges you to complete yourself. He raised his glass higher, to Lily, who showed up barefoot to an interview and walked away with my heart. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, Lily and Nathan found themselves alone in the garden, swaying slowly to music, drifting from inside the chapel. So, Mrs. Sterling, Nathan said, any regrets about marrying your former boss? Lily pretended to consider the question seriously. Well, the power dynamic is definitely questionable. People will always assume I married you for your money. And did you? Absolutely, Lily replied with a straight face. I am only in this for the corporate benefits package, Nathan laughed, pulling her closer. What about the private jet? The private jet is nice, she conceded. But I mostly married you for your exceptional coffee-making skills and your ability to reach things on high shelves. Practical reasons. I can respect that, plus Lily added, standing on her toes to whisper in his ear. You are not terrible to look at. Not terrible, Nathan repeated, such high praise. As they danced in the moonlight, both barefoot on the grass, Lily reflected on the journey that had brought them here. A broken shoe, a collision on a sidewalk, and the courage to be herself in a world that rewarded pretense had led to a love she had never imagined possible. Sometimes the best things in life happened when you were brave enough to show up as you truly were, even if that meant arriving barefoot to the most important meeting of your life. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you found someone who loved you not despite your imperfections, but because of them.